I'd like to call the Thursday, May 4th, special called meeting of the Stafford County School Board to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? Oops, we're going to call Ms. Egan. Hold on just a moment.
That's yours. Is that mine? Yeah. Are you sure? Yes, I took mine.
We just called everybody to order, so we were about to do roll call, and we wanted you to be part of it. So, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Connolly.
Here.
Mr. Cater. Here. Ms. Egan.
Here.
Ms. Hazard.
Here.
Ms. Healy. Here. Mr. Hirons.
Here.
Mr. McOsker.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on, we have approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve the agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or modifications? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda is approved. Next, we will move on to action item 3.01, School Board's adoption of the FY18 budget. I will turn first to Dr. Benson to
Madam Chair, yes, we'd like to have Mr. Fulmer very quickly review information that the board discussed and in the work session. So, Mr. Fulmer.
Good evening. So as Dr. Benson mentioned, I'm going to recap the documents that we reviewed during the work session. So beginning with our operating fund budget summary, we took scenario 1 from our last work session at the direction of the board and was our starting point, and I will quickly go through and recap each line. This scenario includes the $250,000 for the teacher pay scale enhancement. It contributes $800,000 to service scale enhancement, which includes the paraprofessionals, bus drivers, bus monitors, and nurses. It extends last year's 1% for the teacher scale adjustment to the current year, or for FY18. It extends that 1% to all of the non-teacher scales. It eliminates the 1% COLA that was in the school board approved budget. Miscellaneous compensation adjustments reduced by $20,000. The $2.5 million VRS contribution rate increase. Beginning of the funding of the pay band merit pool. And I'm going to quickly go through and then we'll come back and circle back to the new positions. It includes money for the instructional office reorganization, the summer teacher summit, redirection of Title II funding was new from the school board approved budget. We were able to use Title II funding for expenditures that have been for partially fund the teacher summit for the FY18 summer. Remaining in the budget is the $500,000 for the funding contingency. We've made several eliminations and a few additions to our various budget lines. To purchase services, a total reduction of $750,000. And our 5,000 lines, we have an increase of $72,000. This includes a $200,000 increase to lease space at the University of Mary Washington, potentially. We have a net reduction in our materials and supplies, and since the scenario 1 presented at the last work session, there were no changes to our cyclic replacement. Our bus number changed just slightly to get it to equal out for transportation to buy 6 buses, which they expect to be 3 mainstream and 3 special need buses. Yes, ma'am. So that 5 is what the increase was going to be over last year's budget. So we decreased the 530, so that took away that increase of 5, and it leaves 6 in the budget because there were.
I just wanted to make sure people understand we're going to be buying 5 buses, 6 buses, not 5. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Whoops. There were no changes in our other lines here since the last work session. In our revenue line, we had just a slight increase in our revenue of $15,000, which leaves us with a funding surplus of $59,000, just slightly short of $60,000. Just to cover the positions that are in the budget, there were no changes from the school board approved budget to our FY17 additions, except adding the LPN nurse that was added in FY17. For our FY18 additions, and this current original presentation to the board tonight, we had eliminated all 5 diagnosticians, but we had inserted the math specialist from the last work session and the CTT, which will be on the next slide. After discussion with the board in the work session, we are going to be adding 1.5 FTEs for diagnosticians back into the budget. And jumping through to our other support positions, which do sum up to the prior page, so they're included in the last total. But we did eliminate 4.5 custodians. This is not a decrease in our current custodians. We're not eliminating positions. This is some cleanup, but we also have had current year departures, retirements, and the board's will over the last several years has been to, as custodians leave, we are shifting towards contracted services for custodial work. So, quick recap, we started out with a surplus of $59,000. After adding the 1.5 FTEs, it brings us up to a deficit of approximately $38,000, which you guys have left for us to determine where that will come from. So, long story short is our total increase in our budget from FY17 to FY18 will be $9,762,077. If you guys don't have any questions, I know we've already talked about it. I'm going to jump to the other items that were presented. I want to point out the teacher pay scale as reflected in the prior summary. I want to note that this is the years of experience on the side. So currently, if we have a teacher with 12 years experience, next year they will have finished their 13th year. So they will move from the 12th step to the 13th step. However, our scale shifts. So anybody above the level 9 will not see an increase in this current budget as presented. But wanted to show the whole scale to you guys in a clean format. The 1%, so let me make a quick correction because the at the top of the scale, we did not extend the 1% with the scale adjustment last year, so that 1% has been added to the 37 plus line in the current year budget. And that also can be reflected in this document that was presented. I'm going to give a quick summary of what this document represents, and then we'll go over the data. Because our scale shifts each year, I tried to level it off and show the effect of one teacher or one individual staff member on the teacher scale and how they would shift across the years. So we show the 15, 16, 17, and the proposed 2018 scale with the scale enhancement and no COLA. So you'll see over here, because the years of experience change, and 15 was our last year before we shifted to the new compensation model. So it's a little bit different than the 16, 17, 18 presentation. So you'll see a teacher with 3 years of experience in 16, obviously they had 4 in 17, and they'll have 5 in 2018. So in 2015, the base salary teacher scale was $37,793 for somebody on the third step. That same teacher in 16 would make $40,200. In 2017, they would have moved up to $43,045. And in 2018 would be $43,374. And my right 3 columns with the percentages show the increases of those 3 years subsequent to 2015. So in FY16, with the scale enhancement, the VRS 1%, and the other COLAs that we've done in those years, in FY16 it was 6.37%, 17 over 2016 was 7%, and in FY18 they'll see a 0.76% increase. The only percent increases that you'll see in 18 are for the compensation or the scale enhancement with the compensation model. And additionally, at the top of the scale, you will see a 1%, which is extending that 1% like I mentioned prior. So I'll just point out that the starting salary for a new teacher has gone from $37,793 in 2015, and in 2018 will be $42,250. questions on this?
Chris, some of our jurisdictions, comparison jurisdictions have adopted their budgets thus far, but nothing that, none of the action by our comparison jurisdictions has been accounted for within our enhancement,
No, sir.
right? So do
Yes,
we,
sir.
we don't necessarily know where we fall in that median line.
We've started to look as they adopt. We haven't recalculated and redone the model to adjust that. I know our starting teacher salary is still higher than some of those divisions that were still lower than us, and we're still below the ones that were slightly higher than us. And including surrounding jurisdictions that we have remained ahead of.
And Bruce warned us very early on when we adopted the model that we'd always most likely be about a year behind.
Correct.
Because we'll now collect that data, correct? For
Correct.
next, as we start developing budget for next year and
Absolutely.
making sure that we are still shooting for that median goal.
And based on the 2007 models and what we've put into it, it doesn't, obviously it helps, it gets us closer to the median, but there are no, every year we've seen it went from 15 to 12 and 12 to 9. We're not going to see that change much. It may go from 9 to 8, but that's still a little bit to be determined based on where everybody else falls. But as soon as all the other divisions adopt their budgets, we'll recalculate, and we can surely report that to the board before next budget year starts. Included in your packet was just a position summary of what was included in scenario 1 as we headed into tonight. Just wanted to mention from last budget to this budget, it was 68 new positions, but we have added the 1.5 for the diagnosticians because the 5 diagnosticians were not included in this as we started the meeting tonight. So that will go up to 69.5. Also included was just your budget resolution in your packet, so you had it ahead of time. And there have been no changes to that. And lastly, this is an older document that's been presented at several work sessions and board meetings, but depending on where the discussion was going, I wanted to make sure you guys had this available to you as well. I will just recap for paraprofessionals. We, in this budget, have $500,000 invested to the scale, which for classroom paraprofessionals will put the minimum hourly wage to $11.23. For the specialist paraprofessionals will be $11.50. Autism will be $11.81. Bus drivers, there is $250,000 invested, which will bring our starting bus driver hourly rate to $14.32. Assuming all of our current employed bus drivers will move to their second year of employment, all of our current bus drivers next year that complete the courses and stuff required by the pay banding model would be making $15.35 an hour, which would be an increase of 12%. And our lead bus drivers would be $17.39 an hour. Our bus monitors were investing $50,000 into the model, which brings up the minimum hourly wage to $10.25 and $10.81 respectively for first and second years. Our nurses, it was a pretty small amount. You guys decided early on that we would fully fund that, so it gets all of our nurses onto the pay band, and $19.10 for LPNs. RNs are at $24.94, and our degree nurses are at $27.43. So I kind of skipped over. I'll just mention that the pay bands are also listed on the same one with our teacher scales. So you can see where the minimums are for the respective pay scales. And we also mentioned what the target pay band is, although we haven't reached the target yet. Questions or further recap on any specific document?
All right, everybody's looking up. Are there any questions? I know we have already talked through. Any questions on the budget as presented?
I would just like to make a statement, so
Once again, I do appreciate the job that Chris Fulmer and his finance team and the supporting staff has made since he's been in the lead. Chris, you've done a wonderful job, and you've always produced factual, timely, and well-explained information to this board, and that was something that in the past had not been there. And so, I hope you stick around, and
Thank you.
If we have to give you a couple of dollars to do so, I think that might be well worth it. So over the last couple of weeks, and I've done a lot of thinking, and we all have received, but I can speak for myself, a lot of phone calls and emails and door knocks and other things about the teaching, especially for our senior teacher pay scales, that we just couldn't get to. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to this year. And I took this job for many reasons, and two primary reasons. One was taking care of the kids, and then the other was taking care of the employees to the best of my ability. This year, I feel just like our years previous that our kids are well taken care of, but I think I've neglected to provide pay raises for our senior teachers, especially this year, who I call the backbone of our school division. They're the ones that are teaching our younger teachers and our newer teachers on a daily basis, getting them certified and spun up. And they're the ones that take on a large class load because they're capable. And so, I had a hard time sleeping last night thinking about, did I deliver on my promise as the George Washington District Representative, to do those two things? Well, I think I delivered on half of it. I'm pleased that we're finally taking care of our drivers and paraprofessionals. We have a long way to go, and that was one of the board priorities, is that we would really take a look at the drivers and paraprofessionals. And, the paraprofessionals are still almost $2 million out of the bottom of the market, and that's very upsetting. But we did put a dent in it. We did a lot. We did put money on it, and we did see that money through to the end, I think, if it gets approved. So I'm very happy about that. I fought very hard last year for that extra 1%, and the board supported me, and the board supported the teachers, I should say. And I was very pleased to see that back in the budget to make sure that we fund that 1% that we gave the teachers last year. VRS hit us, and for $2.5 million. I'm very happy that we can fund that VRS also this year, amongst some other things that you see, and Chris well explained just a couple of minutes ago. However, by not providing some sort of pay increase for our senior teachers, our teachers with 10 years of service to 29 years of service, as we saw on the chart here, aren't receiving anything in the form of pay scale increase. I can't support that, so I won't be supporting this year's budget.
All right, any other comments?
I just have a motion.
Okay.
I'm going to, it was brought to our attention, and this is true, that there has not been an opportunity for public comment on the current form of the budget. While Dwayne's right, Chris has done a fantastic job. We've been buried in it. We know this budget, and we know the challenges. But to give the opportunity to have public comment on the budget as it's going to be presented for approval, or as it has been presented for approval, I'm going to make a motion to defer further action until our Tuesday meeting.
Second.
Forgot you were there.
I know, that was
Wish you
kind
could have seen him jump already.
of, that's,
Hopefully you're watching.
I think that's very, I'm just going to say thank you very much. I think
Right.
that's a good move, Mr. Hirons.
okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion regarding the deferral part of the motion?
I appreciate Dwayne's comments, and I'm going to save my comments for Tuesday, assuming we'll move towards approving at that point.
Any comments? No, I agree with that motion. I think that, Mr. Fulmer, we will be able to, I guess I would say with the, I don't know if I'd call it an amendment, to update the documents that we prepared tonight to reflect the discussions.
That's one good, great thing as well. We can update the final
Correct.
document to approve.
So that we can add, I believe you noted, certainly the rainbow one with the addition, adding the position into those, and the related documents. Is that,
Yeah, I should be able to send that out tomorrow.
okay, and then what we would do, Ms. Euring, if we can activate that as soon as those have been updated and double-checked and triple-checked, that they would be appended to the agenda once it goes live tomorrow. So, okay.
Madam Chairman, post it on their school board website for the public to be able to review, since that's the purpose of deferring it, so we can get that comment. They can see what's under consideration.
And for the agenda itself, will it be our first action item? Preferably?
We can,
Because one of the things that we've done in the past I didn't like, and this, I think, my first year on the board, we didn't pass the budget until like 11 o'clock at night, because it was the last thing on our agenda. If we could make sure that this is the first action item, so it's very early in our agenda.
yes, I think we can do that. We'll, I believe we do have awards that evening, so we will go through those, but in the traditional sense, we'll make some first action item. All right. I as well will defer my comments till Tuesday at this time. So I will ask that we are voting to move this action item for this evening to the first action item on the agenda for Tuesday, November 9th. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Well, I guess I don't have to really announce we need to go on to an information item, which is 4.01. I believe that the information requested by the board regarding redistricting, I thought, the board made the right decision to, although it has traditionally been that fifth graders have been grandfathered, we did not know the number as we were voting that evening, so we did defer this to get that additional information. Is there any discussion or further information that is needed by anybody?
I would just ask the board, and I don't know the answer to this, or even Mr. Haran, is there any reason we couldn't just come back with a policy on when we move elementary schools, Mr. Haran? What are the costs and benefits of that?
Well, certainly on rising fifth graders, or in middle school rising eighth graders,
Yeah.
or high school rising. So traditionally it has been, but this year with the high school, we took a different approach. So it was a little different from as long as I've been here. I know Miss Healy's been here longer than I, so she's seen a few more redistrictings. So, but I think
Survived.
grandfathering, yes, ma'am. I think grandfathering, at least the rising group, whether it be at elementary, fifth grade, and middle school, has always been as far as I've been here. So we can certainly put it in policy if the board chooses to do that. And then you can deviate on kind of what we did at the high school, with grandfathering.
Yeah, and I think that's a wise, because that's just one more criteria in this whole redistricting, all the things that we look at, that will just be set aside, and we won't have to spend a lot of calories on it. It's a smart thing to do, it's wise, it's prudent, unless someone says it's not. Why did your school get it, mine not? I think we need to have equity. We talk about equity all the time. So that would be my 2 cents, is come back with a policy for approval on rising.
I think politically it's a good idea, but it does tie your strings once you establish a policy that says, that rising grade, whether, the highest grade in that particular level, it ties you in case you could be in a position where you're really in significant concern with the population in a redistricting. Then, that's the only negative that I see that could do. So
We
with
can
it the
bring
way
it-
it is today,
We
you
can
just
bring it before the
establish
board.
it.
We can
Sure.
bring it before the board for discussion and either a work session or something. We will be looking at growth, I believe, for a long time in work sessions, so we may add this as a discussion item of whether we'll go forward if that, I understand, bringing it, we want some clarity, but we also need to know the pros and cons, so I think let's,
I think with this specific case, we need to,
We need to make a
Well,
decision
yeah,
on this.
I'd like
this.
to, I'd like to address this one now, and
Yes,
these
I would
numbers
too.
are much smaller than I had anticipated. If I had known these numbers, I wouldn't have had any,
Yeah, no problem.
question
But we
about it.
weren't sure.
I
understand
think it
that.
really helps to know, because it helps us make an informed decision. And my concern with having a policy is, I think that it could present a problem if you have a redistricting, because you need to, relieve a school of a certain number of students, and hypothetically, a class could be, 16, 17% if they were equally divided, but then we have our bubbles, and it could be significantly more than that. So I would just want to be cautious before, setting a policy that may restrict a future board from meeting the needs that it has when it does do a redistricting. So numbers like this, they're not really going to cause a significant impact on the school. But if you were talking about, dozens of students, that could be an extra classroom. And if you have a school that's already maxed out on classroom space, and that's why you're redistricting, then it could be a problem. So I like your idea, Mrs. Hazard, of discussing it in a work session, because I think, we really need to get the full picture, before we make any, decision.
No, I
along it.
agree. I just look at it as an equity. It's
a great suggestion.
And then because we can always deviate from policy, just like we can always make policy. And so to me, the equitable decision, and with discussion at a later date, is to make a policy that, we move up. And now, if indeed that one out of the 16 or one out of the 17 elementary schools we have to look at the policy and make a different choice, then that's what we do. But,
Well, I don't think we can deviate from policy. I think we have to change a policy. I mean, if we have a policy, we need to follow it. We need to put it in place, because that should be the rule.
well,
And then
policies
if we're going-
can also have waivers. Most policies have waivers.
well, obviously,
Anyway,
we have,
we can talk about this later.
We have some things to discuss before we go forward with that. We will put that as a work item, Ms. Euring, even though you may not be working on it with us, to put as sort of a future.
okay.
Yes.
For this one, can we move 401 to action?
Yeah, I'll
So moved.
second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move 4.01 to action. Any discussion on moving it to action? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
so any opposed?
That'd be me.
That's, okay, I just wanted to make sure, okay. Sorry. Yes, there is a no. Okay,
Follow up with a motion to,
the motion carries 6-1. I just wanted,
yep.
sorry.
Nope.
Now go.
That was to move it to action.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly. Now I motion to, and now allow rising fifth graders from Margaret Brown Elementary School to remain, that are affected by the Falmouth redistricting, students from Manners of England Run, to continue to attend Margaret Brown Elementary School as long as they provide their own transportation. And is there anything else that they have to do, or?
Wasn't there a student at Rocky Run as well?
Right,
Yeah.
that was their own
So
transfer.
they can remain.
Right,
at the
anyone who was
elementary
redistricted as a
school that
result
they
of
currently
the recent
Yep.
decision
Can remain at
could
this.
remain.
Yep, absolutely, yep.
All right, everyone understand, okay, all right. That's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
And I thank you guys for entertaining this. This is I think always a good thing to do for those rising fifth graders that have been there for so long to finish out their year. And I'm glad Margaret Brent can hopefully handle 8 if they all decide. I don't anticipate all 8 of them taking advantage of it, but
Madam Chairman, I'm glad we could do this, and I'd love to see this, in every case. But I'm glad we're doing this in a case at least for now, on a case-by-case basis.
Madam Chair, I believe everybody understands why I'm going to vote no for this. If we haven't done this before in the past and we can't guarantee that it's going to be done in the next redistricting, I can't support it.
We
Okay.
have done it in the past. We just haven't done it in every case in the past.
Correct. Not in my case.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. All right, moving on. That concludes our agenda for this evening. As we know, we will be meeting next Tuesday. We will not be having a work session, but the meeting itself begins at 6:45 correct? No work session? No work session. No work session, so we will be here at 6:45 for the beginning of the meeting for our closed session matters. All right, we are adjourned.
Thanks, Roberta.